Now we have John and Alexandra Zieman from Zieman's Coins here in Central Florida. Guys, it's great to have you here in the CDN podcast series. I've known them for almost 5 years now. Great father-daughter coin dealer team who has seen a lot in their time together, including 2 1943 bronze cents and many other great rarities, which we'll discuss. And we're here today to talk about what they've done, what they've seen in their time as dealers. Alexandria, she's in her early 20s, and she's already had in her young life an incredible career as an NGC grader, as a coin dealer, and a great advocate for the hobby. And the fact that they're a father and daughter team, they embody the very spirit of helping to carry on the great legacy of our hobby to the next generation. So John, we'll start with you quickly. How long have you been involved in numismatics?
Well, actually I started with my grandfather when I was young. And then when I went into the military, I stopped. And when we eventually moved to Florida, got a postcard in the mail one day for a coin show. And my daughter at the time was 8 years old. And I said, "You want to come with Dad and see what I did when I was a little boy?" And she was like, "Oh, collect money, who cares? It's money." And I said, "Well, it's a little different. Let's go have fun." And so we took $100 with us. We went to the show and had a great time.
Wow. And so Alex, do you remember that first trip with your dad to the coin show?
Yeah, I remember it very distinctively. I just remember it was a smaller show, but I was really excited. I was like, wow, I thought coins, I didn't think that coins would go back that far, and then I see all these ancient coins, these old world coins from the 1800s. I was like, wow, back then I couldn't fully wrap my mind around coins could be that old and that valuable, that expensive, and have that many designs and different compositions. So it really opened my mind to what was really out there and not just in our regular circulating money that we see day-to-day basis when we, buy and sell goods.
And of course, being the hobby of kings and queens, you saw early on just how far back the legacy of money goes to the ancient, Romans and Greeks and Egyptians and such. Now, as you've grown into the hobby, Alex, what are some of the things you've learned that really made an impact on your career as a dealer and as a grader?
I feel like that coins has taught me about a society. When you go back into ancient times and older world coins, 1500s and all throughout the eras, coins teach us a society. They teach us about what has happened, what happened in the past, what can we learn from it. I mean, history repeats itself, and we got to learn from what our ancestors, what our great ancestors did, and they just teach us so much about what we were, what we are, and what we can be.
And as coin dealers, of course, like I mentioned earlier, you guys have seen a lot of neat things come across your case in Brooksville, Florida. And for example, the bronze cents, they came across some really cool relics from an early mint director some time back. Isn't that right, John? Would you care to discuss that for a minute?
Sure, yes, thank you. Yes, back, I believe it was in 2012, a gentleman came to me while I was at the flea market set up, and he said, do you buy anything coin related? I go, yes. He goes, well, I think I bought out a mint director's house. And we found out later it was 8th generation Patterson. So his father and son, the father was what?
He was the 4th and 6th mint directors. Those were the father and son team of early mint directors.
1820s, we're talking.
Yes, early 1800s and then the 1830s. Okay. And so the gentleman brought me all these, everything from, we got a hub reduction that's only one known, and they got a half dollar size, that's actually the Smithsonian, but ours is dollar size. We've gotten plates, we've gotten a copper plate of his portrait, we got letters, we got from the University of Pennsylvania his diplomas, signed by Declaration of Independence signers and all that, and just so many things. Family ring, and a box from his desk in the mint, and so many cool things. And that's what really sparked my daughter into wanting to know more about history. Like George Washington could have held this. They could have talked. And then all of a sudden she got really big into the history of the early mint, which was just made both of us enjoy it more.
And it helped to build that enthusiasm for what you're doing.
Yes.
And of course, did you want to talk somewhere else about the Patterson find, or?
All I know is that it was a really interesting find. As soon as it made Coin World headlines, everybody would just come up to us and say, wow, you actually have these pieces, you actually, possess these items. And it's like, yeah, and Coin World only mentioned a small fraction of what we really own, what we really have. And, they only went over it briefly, a brief history, when in reality it goes so much deeper than that. You can look it up in certain bits and pieces on books and websites, and you can look up history about the Patterson family, and how basically back then everybody was all intertwined with one another. Families worked at the mint. You have fathers and sons, mothers and daughters all working at the mint, different generations just working there. That's how tightly knit the early mint community was.
And of course, we at CDM would love to cover this more because it really is a fascinating story, which I think that'd be a great future podcast, because it really is what you guys what walked into your store never really happens. And the fact,
correct.
Yeah, I mean, it's a once in a lifetime kind of discovery. But we find here with Zieman, they both they made some really great finds, including today, John. You have been on the prowl for some time now for a certain black NGC holder, and you found one today, isn't that right?
Yes, made my day, made my show. Quite excited. Me and my daughter have, for the last few years, wanted to start a reference for all these old slabs. Everybody cracks these third-party slabs that are no-name slabs. And we said, well, where can we go to learn about this? So we decided to start collecting them, and we're going to put them on a website eventually where people could come to reference, like, is that a real, when did that company exist? Where did they exist? And the best and toughest one, and I've been hunting for over 3.5 years, was a first generation black core NGC holder. And today at Fun, one of my good friends said, since many people know I'm looking, said, come here. And he pointed me to it, and the gentleman, knowing what I was going to do, actually sold it to me for a lower price than he had an offer for earlier this morning, just because he wanted to go somewhere to do good for other people to enjoy.
Safe home, so to speak.
Yes, so very happy.
And speaking of NGC, going back to an earlier point, Alex, you spent 2 years as a grader at NGC, which is really cool for anybody, but especially the fact that you're not 80 years old. You're a young collector, young hobbyist. Your time at NGC, I'm sure, is transformative, Alex. Are there a few thoughts you wish to share about your incredible time there?
Yeah, I was one of the youngest graders at NGC. I was 19 years old at the time. I'm 23 now. I've spent 2.5 years working there as a grader, a verifier, a finalizer, doing quality control. I did pretty much a little bit of everything, but grading was my main focus. I worked under some mentors, most specifically Alex Molinos has taught me world vintage coins. Rick Montgomery would mentor me and teach me about authenticity. Of course, Mark Salzberg, Ken Craw, to name a few. They've helped me along the way and really guided me into the NGC direction and how coins should be graded, how coins should be authenticated, diagnostics, and they all have helped me along. And there's other people that I know I didn't mention, but pretty much almost everybody kind of took me in, as the young pup of the industry, of the company, and grew me into a little bit more experienced grader, learning obviously the modern and the vintage side of it. And I appreciate it so much because it has opened up my wings, opened up and let me fly in the numismatic world, where it's like I can look at something and say, I know that this is what it'll grade at, or something like that. So,
and as father and daughter, of course, you put your money where your mouth is when it comes to helping the hobby grow, especially among the young generation. You did today, guys. You gave a very generous donation to the ANA, as I understand.
Yes.
Collector programs.
Yes,
right?
We've done this in the past. 2 years ago, when Jeff Garrett was the president, we gave, I believe, $2,200 for their youth program. And why we look at the ANA is so important. When my daughter was 16, they gave her a scholarship. and she went to summer seminar. And it made her so excited about coins above what I was doing. And she actually went 4 years in a row. And because of that, I said the ANA is doing so much. And when I saw it with my daughter, I said, there's got to be other father, daughter, mother, son out there that could use this that isn't always available. So a couple of years ago, we donated. And I had surgery almost to the day a year ago, 2 open heart surgeries. And so we did a small fundraiser. My daughter did while I was in the hospital. And we raised $650. And this morning we presented to the president of the ANA to go towards youth programs. And we're going to continue to do it for as long as we can to help such a great program for this hobby.
What a legacy you guys are leaving for the hobby and for all of us in the community. On a parting note, do you guys have any advice or wisdom for those who wish to, fathers and daughters, mothers and sons, parents and kids, how they can be able to help enthuse the next generation, be they kids or grandkids, cousins, nieces, nephews, whatever, to help get those young people engaged in the hobby? What would you tell those people who wish to pass along the torch to the next generation?
Well, as a father of an only child, I want to say one of the greatest things you could ever have is doing something your child does. Yeah. Oh, it chokes me up because you don't always get this today. And for me and my daughter to grow in this hobby, to experience the good, the ups and the downs, to see a company like NGC value her, and then she comes back after she's learned so much, and to work again with me, you can't buy that. And anybody out there, encourage your kids, enjoy something with them, and it doesn't have to be numismatics. It would be great, but it doesn't have to. The time you have with your kids is so precious. It's been the world to me to be able to do this with my daughter.
Yeah, I agree with everything that my father gets to say or my father has said. I mean, it's such a bonding experience, him and I being able to go back and forth. Him and I are both, pretty knowledgeable numismatists in the hobby, I would say. And so we value each other's opinions, After all my time at NGC, I have fallen out of, knowing the market and knowing what sells. I just know authenticity and grade. He knows market and what will sell better, and he has, the better selling connections. So I feel like him and I, work as a really good team. Whenever we go to shows, whenever we go to tables, whenever we set up, buy, sell, trade, I look at everything and I say, okay, I give my evaluations and what I think is good, what I think is bad, the good, bad, and the ugly. And, and my father says, okay. And then, we work together based on whatever I say or whatever his opinion is, if he has an opinion. We just work together very well, so.
As a team. The best.
And that's the key word is team.
Team, yes.
You guys have seen it all, and we'll see a lot more of you guys in the years to come. John Zieman, Alex Zieman, Zieman Coins in Brooksville, Florida.
Thank you.
Thank you,
guys.
Josh.
It was great to have you on the podcast series, and I hope to talk with you guys again soon.
All right, thank you. We enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. It was our pleasure.